Start your broadcast out.
I did.
Great, whenever you're ready.
All right. The crossword puzzle, frozen food, the traffic signal, canned beer, the ballpoint pen, and the internet. What do all of these have in common? Well, according to inventors.about.com, those were all invented post-1908, the last time the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. The Cubs have been the butt of a lot of jokes for a long time, and with reason. They have the longest World Series losing drought in all of baseball, and according to foxsports.com, they have the longest title drought in all of North American sports, which includes basketball, football, and hockey. I'm going to talk to you about why the Chicago Cubs are the worst franchise in the National League. I'm going to do this by describing to you how the Cubs fans are the worst in the National League, their stadium is the worst in the National League, and how the team in general is the worst in the National League and will be the worst for a long time. As a Cardinals fan who was born in Illinois, whose uncles are Cubs fans, I always get a lot of trouble when the Cardinals do bad, but they fail to realize that their team hasn't won a World Series in over 100 years, so I sometimes question their intelligence. Cubs fans are notorious for leaving games early and being drunk throughout the whole game, but a new study came out that strengthened my opinion on why Cubs fans are the worst. Recently, UFE.com, which stands for Urine Feces Everywhere, did a study about the dirtiest MLB Stadium fans in the country. The cleanest fans? The St. Louis Cardinals. The dirtiest? Yeah, you guessed it, the Chicago Cubs. For every 100 men that went to the bathroom, 79 men did not wash their hands. The UFE says, given the pee to wash ratio, the amount of individuals who have potentially harmful bacteria on their hands is very high. So the next time you're at Wrigley Field and decide, hey, let's just shake this Cubs fan's hand, there's a 79% chance that you'll get harmful bacteria on your hand. Another reason why Cubs fans are the worst in the league is because they're immature. I'll show you a video describing this. I'm sorry if that offended anybody. I just feel it was necessary to make my point. And another reason why Cubs fans are immature is because they throw balls back on the field. According to ESPN, this tradition started when a Cubs fan caught a Hank Aaron home run ball and thought, hey, why would I want this? I say, why throw the ball back on the field when you can make a kid, give it to a little kid and make that kid a fan for life, and hopefully for his sake, not a Cubs fan. Something that might be worse than Cubs fans is Wrigley Field. Wrigley Field is the oldest stadium in the National League, built in 1914. It's had many historical players and games played in it, but I think it's one of the worst stadiums in baseball. Players and coaches would agree, too. Many have complained about the infamous visiting clubhouse and facilities, including former White Sox manager Ozzie Guillen, who claimed he found rats in the inconveniently placed batting cages. In a study by Sports Illustrated, they pulled 308 players to rate the visiting clubhouses, and they voted Wrigley Field the worst. Another bad thing about Wrigley Field is it's a dump. In an article titled, "It's Time for Fans to Realize That Wrigley Field is a Dump," author Rick Morrissey, a Chicago Sun-Times writer, said, "There are narrow concourses, rust and odors that hinted at other things better left unconsidered. The concourses resemble dark alleys, and people still have to elbow their ways to the seats." I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't sound like the most appealing place to watch a baseball game, let alone bring your family. And what did the Cubs do to fix this problem? They put a netting system to catch the concrete if more were to fall. Rick Morrissey, who I mentioned previously, described the netting as the rigging of a pirate ship. I think it's safe to say that it's time for Wrigley Field to go, and we're not in the 1940s anymore. You shouldn't feel unsafe when you watch a baseball game. The last point about the Cubs being the worst team in the National League is that they're bad now and have little hope for the future. I like to think that the Cubs were the worst team in baseball this year, but according to BaseballReference.com, the Cubs actually finished with the second worst record in baseball. And the second worst in the National League, but the worst in of teams that will be in the National League next year as the Astros are moving to the American League. If we look closer into the Cubs' 61-101 record, we'll see that it's much more disappointing than it appears. If you take the player payroll of each team in the National League a losing record and divide it by the number of wins, you get the amount of they pay per win. So for the Cubs, it would be $88,197,033 divided by 101 wins, meaning the Cubs pay $1,445,853 for each win. Not too economically efficient. The only team with a losing record that paid more was Miami Marlins, but at least they have a new stadium and a bright future. Which brings me to the next point. The Cubs have little to look forward in the future. According to SportsTrack.com, a site that analyzes the money within sports, 2007, the Cubs signed Alfonso Soriano to an 8-year, $136 million contract, one of the bigger ones in sports history. Since he's been with the Cubs, according to BaseballReference.com, Soriano has averaged 27 home runs and 79 RBIs, which isn't exactly worth $17 million a year. This is a far cry from Soriano's 46 home runs and 95 RBIs in 2006, the year before he signed with the Chicago Cubs. With Soriano's huge contract clogging up the cap room, the Cubs haven't been able to pick up any significant free agents, leaving them in the cellar of the NL Central since 2010. And to add on to their future looking bleak, they dumped a lot of salary this year, meaning they got rid of some of their best players. In conclusion, the Cubs are the worst franchise in the National League because of their fans being dirty and disrespectful, Wrigley Field being a dump, and their current and future losing ways. With the previous mentioned fire sale, the Cubs won't be on the league team for another 5 to 6 years, leaving Cubs fans everywhere saying, "What's another 5 years?"